And welcome, Louisiana listeners from across the plain. Welcome to the platform through which we are exposing the rhinos in Louisiana, advancing constitutional conservatism in our state, and one measure at a time, draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom. Welcome, everybody. We are continuing our election integrity series today with another special guest who's joining us from the other sunny LA, Los Angeles, Matt Meck with Coalition of Candidates. But before we meet Matt, I want to just speak today's scripture over you all as a blessing. The title of this psalm in the Passion Translation is The Triumph of Faith. It's Psalm 112, verses 1 through 9, and it says, "Shout in celebration of praise to the Lord. Everyone who loves the Lord and delights in him will cherish his words and be blessed beyond expectation. Their descendants will be prosperous and influential. Every generation of the righteous will experience his favor. Great blessing and wealth fills the house of the wise, for their integrity endures forever. Even if darkness overtakes them, sunrise brilliance will come bursting through because they are gracious to others, so tender and true. Life is good for the one who is generous and charitable, conducting affairs with honesty and truth. Their circumstances will never shake them, and others will never forget their example. They will not live in fear or dread of what may come, for their hearts are firm, ever secure in their faith. Steady and strong, they will not be afraid, but will calmly face their every foe until they all go down in defeat. Never stingy and always generous to those in need, they lived lives of influence and honor that will never be forgotten, for they were full of good deeds." I was just reading that this morning, and I thought, what a blessing to speak over our audience. I think, it's just a scripture that reminds us that the Lord is going to come through for the people who love him. And we shouldn't waver and we shouldn't be in fear.
He is indeed always faithful. And that happens to be the traditional motto of the United States Marine Corps, Semper Fidelis. It is such a pleasure to have a former U.S. Marine, Matt Meck, with us today. You have done more in the fields and disciplines of election integrity throughout the United States. Welcome aboard, Matt. It's great to have you on.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Welcome to the, no offense to the folks out here in California, but from the People's Republic of California.
Well, you are doing a wonderful job, not only there, but in other places to change that. Matt, why don't you start background, since we've never had you on, and what you're doing and how you got involved in election integrity throughout the country.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. It started, really 1 May of 2021. It was called the Secretaries of State Summit. Jim Marchant had kind of headed it up as the Secretary of State. He was running for Secretary of State for Nevada. And what we did, we decided to get together a group of people, make a coalition, if you will, of Secretaries of State candidates. So it was a Trump hotel in Vegas, and we had Jim Marchant, we had Mark Fincham, we had Christina Caramo, Rachel Hamm, and then Doug Mastriano had also joined. He had zoomed in because in Pennsylvania, the governor appoints the Secretary of State. So he was there. We had Patrick Byrne was in the room. Mike Lindell had zoomed in. Joe Hoft of the Gateway Pundit was there as well. And that is what kind of kicked it off, where we realized that like-minded secretaries of state could make a difference in ensuring, no matter what party you were, you had confidence in the election system in the United States. Because if you look at history, right, the Democrats were rich in history from 2000 to, 2019. They knew something was not right, and they were very vocal about it. And Republicans like, no. Now the Republicans woke up and the Democrats fell back to sleep again. So in this coalition, we now have grassroots Democrats, grassroots Republicans. Matter of fact, we have a weekly call, and last Friday with Dennis Kucinich on, who's the campaign manager for RFK Jr., and you hear very similar from them that, hey, paper ballots and in-person voting makes sense. So this coalition, it started 1 May of 2021, grew into get other candidates who were maybe not just Secretary of State, but gubernatorial candidates, candidates for Congress, for Senate, and also equally as important, local candidates. And since then, about 1 December of 2021 onward, we've had about 29 election integrity forums throughout our republic. And thanks in no small part to the America Project that really funded the bulk of that, almost I'd say 99% of it, that we had these things from Reno, Nevada, up into Montana, into Michigan and Wisconsin.
Yeah, we had a chance, Matt, to actually look at the website. It's amazing with Coalition of Candidates. One of the reasons why I'm so personally gratified that you are focused on Secretary of State's races throughout the country is that many people ignorantly believe that the Secretary of State position in a given state is more or less a sort of a glorified secretarial position, and that they really don't perform particularly vital functions in a state. Well, that is far from the truth, particularly when you're dealing with issues that relate to how our votes are counted, how our votes are processed, the integrity of our voter rolls. You could argue that the Secretary of State is every bit as important in a state as the governor is. And so your group, Coalition of Candidates, and the work that you're doing to educate the public and to help elect candidates to Secretary of State who understand the vulnerabilities of the system is remarkable. But how do you view the progress that you're making now in educating and informing the public about some of the vulnerabilities of our system?
Yeah, very good question. And I think we are making a difference. There's a gentleman named Mark Cook who's been with us from the beginning. Matter of fact, he'll be speaking at the Lindell event there in Springfield, Missouri today. And I encourage folks, and he's working with Dr. Rush and Brandon and John Scanlon there in your state of Louisiana on helping to show how you get transparency, confidence, and verifiability in an election. And his website's called handcountroadshow.org, I believe. And he's primarily going through Texas, but it shows that how easy it is to do this. And one of the biggest questions a lot of election officials will have, they seem to be good people. They're scared, like they're so tied to the vendor. They are concerned or afraid on how to conduct an election without a machine because I don't have the bodies. It's going to cost so much money. And everywhere we've gone, people have volunteered in the hundreds in every locale. They'll volunteer to hand count for the election official. And my counterpoint to anybody worried about costs is like, well, it's not a cost. It's probably a cost avoidance and not using machines. And by the way, if you can keep the money local in your precinct, in your county, that economic multiplier effect so much better for your local people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, what would you say, like, how would Coalition of Candidates, just for the purposes of our discussion, how do you define election integrity? It's kind of, different people have different areas that they focus on when they're talking about the integrity of an election.
Well, I'd say first off, you have to look at the election system as an ecosystem, right? And it's actually, people just kind of focus on the tabulation. You really got to look at voter rolls, polls, the poll books when you check in, the tabulation, and the reporting. So there's 4 different distinct areas that we, the people, I think, need to reclaim as ours and stop outsourcing it to a third party.
Yeah.
And we would say, and again, we have grassroots Democrats, grassroots Republicans, and you wouldn't know the difference in their philosophies on election integrity unless they told you they were Democrat or Republican. It has to be understood by all. Everyone has to have confidence. So we call it now election confidence, that the vote that I cast is the vote that's counted. It has to be transparent and it has to be verifiable. Because if it's not, there's a great gentleman that we had at one of our forums in Ohio, Bill Lind, a great conservative thinker. He wrote New Conservatism with Paul Burrich. He actually wrote a book I encourage all your listeners to read. It's a novel called Victoria. His pseudonym is Thomas Hobbes on there in homage to Leviathan, but it kind of explains the world we're in now. But see, as he highlighted in that forum, this is not about R versus D, and even folks on the Democrat side would say in the grassroots, it's not R versus D. It's we the people versus the elite, the power structure.
Absolutely.
And if we don't have confidence in our election system, and people then do not vote, by definition, we do not have a democratic republic. And then we begin to atomize as a society, right? R versus D, male versus female, gay, straight, you name it. They just want to divide us, and we can't allow that to happen.
You're absolutely right.
Matt, I love the way you put it. It's not really R versus D, male versus female. It's really the people versus the entrenched power structure. And it seems that there are so many who are entrenched in the power structure who seem to be resistant to instituting the types of reforms in our voting system, our machines, converting to secure paper ballots, cleaning up the voter rolls so that we reduce the incidences of fraud. There seems to be a lot of institutional resistance to those types of changes. Why do you think that is?
I think maybe a couple of reasons. One, learned this in the Marine Corps, right? Why not to go down a path in the woods because it's easy, right? Humans can be lazy, and we'll take the easier course of action most times. And I think folks who are now used to this system are not wanting to change because it's just easy, right? It's easy from an election official just to do it this way, right? The vendor's kind of doing most of the work. I don't have to do as much. And if I switch, it's the fear of the unknown, right? How do I go back to paper? Like, well, we did it for 200 years, no problem with paper. And that's one issue. I think it's just human nature, and I'll go on to more why I think we're all maybe a victim of what we call in fifth generation warfare, PSY-ops, psychological operations, and PSY-acts. And I would challenge your listeners to think about 2000, right? Bush v. Gore. It really wasn't about pregnant chads, dental chad, banging chads. It was to put in the American people's mind, paper bad, machines good. Paper bad, machines good. That was the real underlying message to the American psyche, was to stop using paper. Go to machines and we'll solve all these problems. And they've just gotten worse. But the other point I'd say, though, your question is, if there are people who are using the system as it is, I believe, and others do as well, to maintain power. And whether some are Republicans, some are Democrats, and the system allows them to maintain power. And when you get down to it, this is all about power.
Yeah.
It is all about power. And I really love your point on the laziness and just the lack of interest in change that we have as a society. And I think, the laziness, the evils of laziness can be seen easily whenever we look back at COVID and, the pressure that was put upon people to take the vaccine, to stay home, to not work. All of that just, people took the path of least resistance in a lot of ways. And I think this is the same exact thing with our elections. What is the path of least resistance and how can we get this done with the least effort? And look, we're paying the consequences. We're reaping the consequences of that very thing.
Indeed.
Yes, think about it. I mean, just as I'm driving now, you've got a GPS device telling you where to go. We humans, and we used to do this, in the military, to tell people, that machine is not there to replace your brain. That machine is there to help you in your brain make the best decision possible. And I think with our election systems right now, all too many of our citizens, our county officials, our election officials, just are trusting whatever that machine's saying. And for the folks who are in the military, maybe listen, or veterans, think about this. And this always infuriates me when I think about this. Is that those of us who are in the military would know, right? You come into the squadron or battalion, and they'll tell you, hey, if your SSN ends in 3, 7, or 9, it's a urinalysis today. Go back there and take, if you call it in the military, the whiz quiz. And they're so fastidious on the chain of custody of that urinalysis sample, right? You have one break in that chain of custody, the whole lot is thrown out, right? That's how serious it is. But yet we don't even have the same level of chain of custody structure on our ballots as we do for urinalysis samples in the military, which is just disgusting.
That is a brilliant analogy.
It is. That is a brilliant analysis. You're right, Danielle. And Matt, it's It's not even close. I can only analogize it as a lawyer in trials, particularly criminal trials. One of the things that defense lawyers attack ruthlessly in trial is the chain of custody of evidence, whether it's DNA evidence or any kind of physical evidence. If they do not have a smooth, clean chain of custody, then that's a real problem for the evidence that they're trying to put forward. And what you're saying is that we don't have the same guarantees in our machine-based voting system, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Correct. You don't. Or folks go to vote. We just saw it recently happening up in Ohio when they had that referendum on they all went to vote for making it more difficult to amend their constitution. And machines were jamming. Was not widespread. I wouldn't say it was widespread. That would be an exaggeration. But what happens? Well, just drop your ballot off in this box. Well, my vote's not counted yet. I'm just dropping this ballot off. Where the hell is it going? And something else I challenge your listeners, something you want to insist upon beyond, as we would say in the coalition, paper ballots, in-person voting, same-day voting, and votes are counted where they're cast. Because you should not go to a precinct, have you vote cast, and then it's counted. It's got to get in a vehicle and go 30 miles to some mega center to count. No, I want it counted right where I cast it. Again, to your point, so that chain of custody of my vote is solid.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know we only have you for a few more minutes, Matt. So just one more question for you on the coalition. Who are you working with candidate-wise? And you already mentioned that you're working in Louisiana, but how are you working in Louisiana?
The credit I give to Dr. Kathy Willis and to Tommy Waller, two great Louisiana natives. Tommy, like myself, a fellow Marine, and I got to know him in 2020. And same thing with Kathy Willis after the 2020 election. So through them, got to know, John Scanlon, Dr. Russ, and then Brandon Trosclair. We are trying to help as best as possible. Brandon Trosclair, for your Secretary of State office. I know he's got Lindell's endorsement. We're trying to work all our avenues to have President Trump endorse him. And then throughout the rest of the country, a lot of folks who were part of our coalition who were running for Secretaries of State didn't win those. But I'd say, again, did they win or not? Because when you have a margin of error, a margin of victory that's less than the margin of error, how do you know? You don't have confidence in an election. But we have folks like Dorothy Moon. She's part of our coalition. She's the Idaho GOP chair. Mike Brown, he's the Idaho GOP chair of Kansas. Christina Caramo, she's the GOP chair of Michigan. We're working to get him on a call here soon. Josh McCune, who just became the GOP chair of Georgia. So we have those folks. We have Jim Marchant, who's running for U.S. Senate in Nevada, and others, here throughout the country. RFK Jr., we again had his campaign manager on the call on Friday, disagreeing on some things like abortion and gun rights, but on the underlying principles of the importance of the Constitution and no lockdowns and those kind of things, there's agreements on. And a lot of grassroots Democrats who are, again, re-challenging. One is Greg Marcel Dixon. He's challenging Clyburn again for Congress out of South Carolina. And if you listen to grassroots Republicans and grassroots Democrats, as Americans, you see there's a hell of a lot more that we have in common than we don't.
It's gratifying to know, Matt, that to hear from you that Democrats and Republicans, regardless of political persuasion, seem to be increasingly agreed upon one point, that without a secure election system that truly reflects our intent verifiably, we really don't have a republic. It is the paramount issue of our day. And very thankful to you on behalf of the State of Freedom for all the work that you continue to do. I believe you're probably aware at this point that Brandon Trosclair took on the federal government with regard to the vaccine mandate and won at the U.S. Supreme Court because they were trying to mandate the vaccine for his employees. Took him on, and it is estimated that he saved about 80 million jobs in the United States, people not having to get the mandate. So that's the kind of candidate that we have here. And thank you so much for trying to secure, as best you can, a Trump endorsement. Needless to say, that goes an awful long way.
Hey, no problem. It's my honor to be on, and yeah, it's I call it just a common sense coalition, right, for voting. And again, for all the folks who are in the military who listen to you are veterans, I didn't learn until after November 2020 that heck, my absentee ballots that we cast most of our lives, meaning in the military, wasn't even counted half the time. You're like, wait a second, if we're willing to put our life on the line for you, then our ballots should be counted. I don't care if it's close or not close, right? Whatever happened to every ballot must be counted. Every vote must be counted.
What would happen, Matt, if you were in a football game and let's say a team, Nick Saban's coaching a football team and he's winning 44-7 with 45 seconds left to go in the game, and he scores a touchdown and the referee goes over and says, "Coach, no big deal here. We're not going to record that touchdown. You're already winning. You're going to win 44-7. No big deal." What do you think Saban's response to that would be?
Oh, he'd have a cow, and I'm a Gator alumni, and I'd still support Alabama in that one.
Yeah. There's no love lost with Alabama over here. One quick point,
Matt. Not at all.
Would you let our listeners know how they can learn more about your organization, and if they want to support the work that you're doing, how they can do that?
Sure. If they want to see the work that we've done, the best way is to go to the letters ACCFEI.org, and that stands for American Citizens Candidates Forum for Election Integrity. They can see all of the forums that we've had. They're all recorded there, thanks to the great work of Mark Cook, who's volunteered all of his time. Literally, like most of us, he's obliterated all of his life savings to help save our republic, because we realized the republic is on the precipice. But there you can watch that, and soon you're going to see it. It'll be a site that'll be live into this month. It's going to be called unauthorized.one, and it's a 501c4 we created that is going to help educate and help candidates who are running for office, especially those moms and dads who just decided to get involved because they're tired of the professional political class screwing them over.
Yep.
Excuse my French. Because what we found, and this is a key, I think, for your listeners, is that a lot of these grassroots candidates, when they wanted to go run, trying to get a good campaign share. I mean, Brandon would say, oh my God, they want to charge them like $2.1 million for nothing, right?
Gosh.
But help them get the support they need, the grassroots moms and dads who just decide to run. And they don't want to stay in office, right? They want to do their job and kind of get back to their real life. But what we found is they couldn't get a good campaign manager. They couldn't get campaign finance chairs because they weren't part of the good old boy or good old girl club. And if someone did say, "I'll help you," they told them, "You will say what I say, when I say, and how I say it." And of course, all the folks in our coalition said, "No, thank you."
Yeah. And then it sounds to me like you're surrounded by a great group of American patriots. We're glad to know that Brandon Trosclair is plugged into your group, and we will have you back on soon. Thank you for all the valuable work you're doing, and safe travels to you today.
Thank you so much. You guys take care, and God bless you all and your listeners.
Thanks, Matt. Same to you. I love the work he's doing, Chris.
It's amazing. We were trying and looking around, who can we have on the national level on the show, as you know, to talk about these issues from a national perspective. And we came across him through the great Dr. Kathy Willis. And wow, he is doing exactly what needs to be done to inform and educate the public. He has surrounded himself by some great Americans, and just very thankful to have had Matt on. We got to have him back.
Yeah, we do. I think the work that they're doing is so incredible. And of course, if Dr. Russ is tied in with them and a lot of these other Louisiana First election integrity warriors are working with him, then, all of our efforts are strengthened by working together. And I think that's abundantly clear. And we, like you said, Chris, we were taking a look at the website and trying to understand exactly what his organization is doing and how they're supporting candidates. And the candidates that they're supporting are total rock stars.
Oh, just tremendous. You couldn't ask for any better. And certainly not in the case of Brandon Trosclair. But we are very excited moving forward here. Before we go today, Danielle, I wanted to give the listeners, first of all, I want to thank all our listeners from the heart for all of their support, for subscribing and sharing the State of Freedom, for donating, for advertising on our show. we could not do anything that we do. We could not bring the voice of constitutional conservatism to citizens across Louisiana without the support of those very same citizens. And from the heart, from the state of freedom, thank you to everyone who can hear the sound of my voice now. You have no idea the level of gratitude we feel for your support. And I'm going to leave it with you there, Danielle. Before we go, why don't you tell the listeners how they can continue to support our show?
Yep, and I couldn't agree more. You guys are the wind beneath our wings, literally. It's just so encouraging. We need your encouragement just to keep going. You're the reason we're doing what we're doing. And we just hope that you would continue to subscribe and share and make this show resound across the Louisiana plain, as Chris calls it. To support us, you can go to our website, which is freedomstate.us, and visit the support page, which is connected to Glow FM, who's our payment processor. And so it'll take you kind of to a third-party site, and you can either do a monthly subscription for a low dollar rate, or you can give a gift, a one-time gift, or you can give however much you want. But we appreciate every single ounce of support we can get, both through prayer, through your words of encouragement, and your financial support. Also, to support the Louisiana First candidates that LACAG is endorsing, you can visit the LACAG website, which is just LACAG, LACAG.org. All right, Chris?
We are, Danielle, revolutionizing the way political advocacy is done in Louisiana. Day by day, we are broadening, we are expanding, and we are giving the voice to the average Louisiana citizen with a dream and a focus and a desire to protect the Constitution. And we continue forward every day to preserve the state of freedom in Louisiana.
Amen. Thanks, Chris.
God bless you.
Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to The State of Freedom, LLC, at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.